Doc Sweitzer is here. Hillary, if you can get his PowerPoint going. Doc Sweitzer has been in politics for many, many years, doing congressional races, governor's races, prime minister's races in other countries. There's a trade journal called Campaigns and Elections Magazine, where he's called the campaign doctor. He would write a column, and political consultants would write in to ask Doc questions. At the American Association of Political Consultants, which you've heard a little bit about earlier, they actually have awards for the best political consultants and the best TV ads and the best everything. And Doc is actually like the arbiter of who wins, because he knows, what is the best, and he really is very, very clear. So he gave me this speech. I heard this speech, I think, probably 23 years ago. And it has been in my head ever since. And so when we did this very first training seminar ever of this new organization, which, by the way, he is co-founder of this organization, which I am just thrilled about, I said, there's a speech that you gave 23 years ago that is as relevant today as it was 23 years ago. I need you to come and give that speech. So that's why it says, yes, you'll get the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Not right now, but at some point.
Okay. Thank you. I'm really honored to be doing this, because it's, as I said to Jennifer, we can make a real difference. There are over 35,000 lobbyists in this town for every interest imaginable, and they're here for a reason. That's because in politics, it's all about who gets what. And if you advocate and you push and you have a clear message, a consistent message, you're more likely to be heard. But the truth of the matter is, it's like a tree falling in the woods. If you don't make it loud and there aren't people there, it doesn't get heard. One thing I want to do, clear up real quick, these guys are terrific, and we're all interested in how do you talk to the press, and all levels of press, not just newspapers and everything. And one of the things that's really important, because I do some marketing for newspapers, the media has really cut back like everything else, and so they're really squeezed more than ever. And the traditional model of how we think newspapers write and television writes is pretty much broken, okay? Because they're dealing with half the staff that they dealt with years ago. They're dealing with much more coming at them because of social media, and the gentleman said he had 2,000 to 3,000 unlooked at emails in his box. That gives you a sense of how overwhelmed they are. It's shocking that there's no reporters or nobody, as you looked for, covering folks with disabilities. And that's just a lobbying effort that we all have to do. We have to go to those folks. The truth of the matter is, when I talk about marketing to newspapers and news organizations don't even know what to cover. I mean, they're following an old model. And the world has changed so dramatically. So one of the things we did is for the newspapers, we went out and we taught them what their audience was about. Because they sat and their audience was the other people in the room, the world in front of them. And we had to teach them that there's all this other stuff going on out there that you're not covering, because you've gotten in a habit of just sort of covering the same old, as I say when you watch the local TV news, it's like everything's on fire. Everything's on fire, or everybody's being shot, okay? And that's a formula that they use, and you've got to get in and break that world up. So we have a lobbying effort to news organizations just to present them the information that this is a huge community, this is a huge part of their constituency, this is a huge part of their income in terms of for their advertisers, and we have to re-educate them and get them to understand they should be covering this issue. Anyway, all of this stuff, whether it's pushing to a news source, or pushing to a politician, or pushing to a corporation, or pushing to an organization to get your point across to raise money, is a campaign. They're all campaigns. And whether you do them here and it's a political office for one of these congressional people over here, or you go to a foreign country, or you're trying to put a gym floor in a new YMCA. Whatever it is, it's a campaign. And what I have done, and what my lecture is to try to simplify that and give you some basic framework so that any kind of campaign that you can say, this is the framework we want to deal with, this is how we're going to approach this. Campaigns are really simple. They have basically two elements, a message, okay, a message and a delivery system. And that's it. What's our message? What's our consistent message that we're all on the same page? You know, I was talking to somebody earlier and they were saying, they went to a meeting, they had the audience right there, and 5 different groups talked. And when they were done, the person says, okay, what do you want? 5 couldn't agree. They didn't have a message. They didn't have a consistent message. They could close the deal right there. Okay? So fighting really hard to come up with a message that you can all agree on and push and promote is important in delivering. Your message is your reason, the reason we want this action. Okay? We say over and over again that 70% of folks with disabilities do not have jobs, and many of them want a job. That's a message. It's a simple, easy to understand. And then the delivery. So I'm going to talk you through what are steps in the campaign, what they're like, and walk you through how I would approach any campaign and how I approach respectability. But the first thing is, part 3 here, what makes this really difficult is we have limited resources. All of us are dealing with limited time. Time is our greatest enemy, okay? And you have to capture that with your organization. You have to say, we don't have time anymore to necessarily be a committee or anything. We got to get to the point. We got to move it as fast as we can. So time is your biggest enemy. We're all short on money. If we had the money, we could just go out and buy ads or put ads up or whatever. Talent and people are your other resources. So it's all this balancing, and the important thing is to capture those resources and understand that they're limited and you got to get to it. So the steps in the campaign, the first one is anything you do, you take what appears really complex and you make it simple. Okay? You make something that's really complex and you make it simple. I've sat in many meetings day after day after day, and people will, yeah, I don't know how to work that. See if we get that down. Oops. Yeah.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Did you want me to go forward?
Yeah, go forward to steps in the campaign. You doing right there? There we go. Good. Take what's complex and make it simple. Okay? I'll use a great example. There's a state where we're trying to get some organizing going for some medical professionals. And people, we sat forever and ever and ever and talking, and finally asked the simple question is, who's going to make the decision? They said the governor. Okay, so we've taken what's complex now and we've made it simple. We've got to figure out how to move that one person's position. The way you do that is research. You research everything you can. You research the issue. You research the people who are going to make the decision. What do they really care about? You research how they think. You research what they read. You research in the greatest detail so that you don't, as I say in campaigns, instead of, my opinion, I think we should do this, you want to change the conversation to, I know we should do this. Mm-hmm. We all sit in meetings where I was like, I think we should do this. I think we should do this. Well, what do you mean? I don't care what you think. I want to know, do you know we have to do this? And the way you know something is to do a lot of research about it, because the answer comes through the research. Okay? And then it takes it away of like, I think we should do this, but think back, because we can have opinions all day long. The next thing is you got to define a target. As I said, we've defined a target as a single person, as the governor. You know, too many campaigns, too many efforts, spend too much time talking to the wrong people. Okay? You do it. You know, a couple folks, I'm from Pennsylvania, a couple folks here are from Pennsylvania. You know, the legislature in Pennsylvania is controlled by about 10 people. That's it. So you can spend all day long running around and all your effort, running around, spinning your wheels to everybody else, and it's going to come down to 10 people. Okay? So it would be a lot smarter than to spend 10 times your effort on those 10 people and move them and figure out how to move them than it would to talk to 100 people and dissipate your energy. So you have to figure out who the target is. And the target could be a television station, it could be a newspaper, it could be a mayor, it could be somebody in some bureaucratic department, it could be a head of a corporation. Figure out who that person is, that organism that you've got to move, and focus everything on that goal. And in your meetings, your organizations, you say that over and over again. That's our target. You know, I used to have a great, I worked on a campaign years ago in Texas, and every time we had a meeting, you know, before the meeting, campaign manager would go up there and he would write, name of the target, the 2 or 3 things we were trying to say to the target. And what it was that when everybody started blabbing in the meeting, it's like, no. There's the target. Let me point to it again. There's the target. Here are the 2 or 3 things we got to get across. You have to come up with a strategy. Okay? I talked about the analogy on the governor strategy. We said, well, we got to get information into his head. So we started looking, like, what's he watch on TV? What's he read in the newspaper? Who are the people he really listens to? What staff does he listen to? What blogs do they read? Research. We're trying to get in their head. We're trying to get something towards a result. But that was our strategy. How do we get the information into the right places? Our message, how do we deliver it to this one person? Knowing there's concentric circles. You come up with this message. I said it's a reason. In any situation, you usually have multiple ways to deliver and say the message. One of the things that we're all kind of frustrated with, and Jennifer and I were talking about it earlier today, and I to be honest, I have to learn much more about this, but basically all of us have a storyline in our head, okay? So when you're talking to an elected official or you're talking to somebody, I mean, how many times do you have political conversations and the person you're talking to sounds like they're from another planet? It's like, what are you reading? What are you looking at? Like, where did you get that information? But the truth of the matter is that we all have storylines in our head. And we try to take the information and it fits it in this storyline. I was reading recently The Voyage of the Beagle. Darrell was writing, he would write something down the minute he saw it, because he knew that a half hour later his brain would reoperate it back to fit the storyline that he wanted. Okay? So we all have these storylines, and what's happened in America that makes it really difficult is we have media that tells you your storyline is right. You get to pick what you want. You get to pick your own set of facts now. Okay? And it's really quite difficult now to have conversations with people because facts are less and less important. Okay? Because you can get any set of facts to fit any opinion that you want. That means that you have to make your message or carve your message so it fits their storyline. So it's their idea. Okay? Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, that fits what I want it to be about. Okay? And we spend, it's the reality that we do in political persuasion or any kind of persuasion these days is that we're going up against what we think is rationality. And we say if we present them as facts, they're going to be able to accept the facts, except if their brain says, they're not the facts that I start with, therefore, you know. So we have to be really better at figuring out how to move the message line from, some folks are interested in on an economic level. How does it affect our taxes? How does it affect people getting to work? Other people are on a compassionate level. We have to get really good at being able to move because people we're trying to persuade have a storyline, and we got to fit into their storyline. Okay? That's our message. Then we have to figure out how we're going to deliver it. One of the great things today is you don't have to, you're not just beholden to newspapers, to 3 TV stations. You know, you have social media that you can use to get through. You have, I mean, YouTube is terrific, not to think that you're going to put something up and it's going to get viral, that someone's going to sit there and like, click in and go, you know, boy, that's what I want to see. I mean, when the governor of New York, when Patterson was the governor of New York, someone said, well, we're going to make a bunch of videos and they're going to be viral. As the governor of New York, he did 17 videos, and the most looks he got was 71. Okay, because like no one gives a shit about that. The reason, though, that you use tools like this is that you can move them around to people. It gives you, it forces you as an organization or as a message to solidify it in a way that's easy to understand. We'll talk about that's important about messages. Easy to understand, and the ability to move it around to other people. Okay, so let me give you an example of a visual. Jennifer and I were talking about this. The gentleman, he might even be here, but the metro station brakes. Okay, the elevator in the metro station brakes. It means nothing to me. Okay, but a gentleman in a wheelchair, it means everything. Okay, so it's an extra hour commute one way and an extra hour commute another way. And I thought, you know, I'm not going to, after I heard the story, I'm not going to look at a metro elevator again and not think of that. Like, you know, imagine that's visual to me now, you know, because I heard that story. It's visual to me and it means something to me. That with YouTube and the ability now to chop and edit really inexpensively, those are the kind of stories that one could make and say, you know, for you it might not mean anything, for me it's this, and 100 people a day use this. That's at least 200 more hours of work that are wasted or lost, and you know, this is what the cost is. I mean, see, I'm hitting the message where it hits whatever the person wants in their storyline, because somebody's saying, hey, fix that damn thing because we're losing money, you know, whatever we're hitting on that thing. But the truth of the matter is that's a terrific story that can be done inexpensively. It's taking the research and making it simple for every idiot out there to understand. Or as I call it, I said this at a speech a couple of weeks ago, it's not that we have enough information in this country, we need information for dummies. We need it broken down and simplified, and easy to understand and easy to deliver. And that's a perfect example of a story that could get chopped, put together, moved out to a community and would make a difference. Because I'd be the first one at City Hall or whatever saying, well, fix these damn things. Make that a priority as opposed to fixing the escalator. Make that the priority, okay? You have to set quantifiable goals, okay? It's really easy to confuse hard work with action. We all work hard, and we all know lots of people that spin their wheels, okay? And we have to be really tough in everything as a voice, setting quantifiable goals so that we just don't yell and scream and nothing happens. Let's figure out, like, how do we get this stuff across. Quantifiable goals are, whether it's your time or your budget or whatever, what we're going to focus on and what we are going to say is a victory. What we're going to say is a victory. You have to write a budget plan. That means you have to budget your time. As I said, that's a resource. You know, you've got to budget where you're going to approach. And you have to stay maniacally focused. You have to stay maniacally focused. I always, part of my speech, I always say, in America, there is one exception, Iwo Jima. There are no statutes for committees. Okay? There are no statutes for committees. And we tend to want to have committees, and we tend to want to talk and be nice with everybody. And my point is that somebody at some point says, we're not going to be, we're just going to go knock it out. And if someone gets their nose out of joint, I'm sorry, you know, because let's all be into the result, into the win. And let's have, you know, a statue. Let's get a statue for the victory. And you have to pay attention to details, because it's the phone call that didn't get returned, the email that didn't get opened, this that was missed, this opportunity or that opportunity that was missed at some point. That could be the key one. I mean, we were talking about editorial boards earlier. You want to flip every stone over. I don't know where the answer is. I mean, and a lot of these things, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know which public official is the golden moment. I don't know what newspaper is the golden moment, or what TV program is the golden moment. I don't know where that is. We're going to discover this. But it's there. It's there. And we just have to open up every opportunity in every place to do it. Because it's, people will be receptive to it if it's done the right way, but I'm not sure where exactly it is. That's why we have to flip every stone. and look for it. And we're going to find it, and we're going to build upon it, we're going to build upon it, we're going to build upon it, and build the organization. Now, a couple things. Is this helpful?
Very.
Okay. Because I like to talk.
Space Force.
Okay. So in 5 minutes, I'm going to bang out what makes this difficult and how you can sort of think about this. You know, I said people have storylines in their head. There's no reporter that doesn't have a storyline and a bias in their head. Okay? Anybody who reads, writes, and thinks has a storyline. So you're dealing with folks, everybody you deal with, a member of Congress, a staffer, a reporter, whatever, has a storyline, and it's not neutral. It's firmly held, okay? It's firmly held in her head. I said this earlier. Look, if you follow anything, one of the examples I use, it's like, if you lived in New York and you followed baseball, you'd either be a Mets or a Yankees fan, period, okay? Or you didn't follow it at all. Everybody we deal with in the sphere is either a Mets or Yankees fan. And if they're a Mets fan, you can't tell them the Yankees aren't good. You're going to have to figure out how to get like into their brain and work around and vice versa. Because their storylines are held very hard. The media, as I said, confirms it. You have to deal with that storyline. I don't think that most people are evil. I think that the failure is, as I always say, it's our job to do a better job of persuading them, of giving them the information, of wearing them down, of getting to them. And you know, as I taught my child, like if you get knocked back, you got to go forward and say, well, there's got to be another angle into that, okay? And I was telling Jennifer, in 35 years in politics that I've been doing this, I've never been approached by anybody in the community. No one's ever said, hey, this is an issue that you should have your candidates talk about or whatever, and I should be a target. Okay? So I should be a target because I advise candidates on, like, you should focus on this issue or focus on that issue. And guess what? The best time to get to them is before they're in office. Because once they're in office, the 35,000 lobbyists take over. Okay?
Do you want to talk about Jack Markell?
Yeah, I mean, if he shuts the camera off. No, Jack Markell is one of my clients, is the governor of Delaware. He's the most terrific guy, and he's taken this issue to heart, and he's made it the cornerstone of his tenure as president of the National Governors Association. And I don't, the reason I didn't want to record it is I don't know if this story is true, but the way I explained to you, it was simply a gentleman went up to him and spoke to him, a gentleman with disability who said, you know, he's thankful because something that the governor had did provided him a job. And the governor said, well, what were you doing beforehand? And he said, I was watching TV for 10 years. Is that true? I mean, I wasn't there to hear the story, but basically one person got to the governor, struck a chord, and now change is being made, okay? When I say we don't know what to flip over, we have to constantly flip over because we don't know when you're going to get that opportunity and that storyline, but that's the way we have to provide. And God bless him because he is terrific and he's stuck by his guns on this. Anyway, the final thing, and these gentlemen aren't included, but you know, press, Congress, staff, etc. You know, I said everybody's overwhelmed, but everybody's a lot lazier now too. Okay? I mean, because we've got technology and we're doing this and we're doing that and we got this and we got that. And it's not people grinding like the old days. So it's a lot harder because the attention spans are so much shorter. There's so little time and so little like opportunity to get it that you got to strike it. Anyway, real quick, you want the right message. Clear and simple. Something that an idiot can get. Easy to understand. 70% of people with disabilities don't have a job. That's easy to understand, okay? Easy to understand. Believable, okay? Believable. You know, you're going to get, Practice your elevator speech. You're going to be in an elevator with somebody, you better get them right there. It better be believable, it better be right at it, because otherwise they're going to blank out. Okay, heard enough of that, blank out. He said, they're giving me their phone numbers. Goodbye. Hey, that's the world now. So it's got to be believable. Relevant. Really good questions about the spending and these massive amounts of money and these everything. Break it down to real numbers that a human being can understand. I have an argument all the time because this town spends trillions of dollars. I don't know what the hell that is. I mean, I have no idea how much money is spent here, what it is, etc. But when someone says it's $452 of your money for this piece of crap program over here that went to war here, or like I used to break the Iraq war numbers down into, this is going to cost you $6,281. Okay, because a person could relate to that, but they can't relate to I don't know whose money is it or whatever. But if you tell me that it's going to cost me $6,281, so in all these programs, if you can break it down, it's only this amount of money additional per family per year, $26, or it's only this amount of money or whatever. Break it down to something that I can understand. It needs to be thoughtful, emotional. We have values. We do believe in opportunity. That's why respectability, that cornerstone of the word opportunity, we believe in that. So when we couch things in terms of we're just asking for opportunities. We're not asking for anything else. That's a pretty universal value across all parties. Okay? That's a universal value across the media. Opportunity. It's a cornerstone of our values. Appeal to those, and then a hook. Something that's a hook in some way that somebody can remember the story. We sort of remember statistics, but we're much better. We've spent tens of thousands of years sitting by a campfire listening to stories. We can remember a story. We can remember somebody at the metro station pushing a button and it doesn't work because we can remember that story. Then we'll take the statistics and understand how the problem is relevant. But we can then picture it in whatever because we spent 50, 60,000 years by a campfire. Listen to the stories. Our brain processes those very well. That's what the hook is. You have to do it the right way. You want to go big as best possible. If you can get on television, okay? They're always looking for visual stories. They're always looking for stories like this that if you can translate it in some way, deliver it to the target, once again, who do you really want to influence and where do they sit? In other words, if you're working in Pennsylvania and you want to influence in Harrisburg, because the legislature do that, or maybe Philadelphia, because it's more powerful and got money and everything. It's trying to figure out where those are, where that is. And you got to do it over and over again. Most folks do one and done. And it don't work. It doesn't catch on one and done. You have to keep reinventing the story and coming back at it and coming back at it and putting a different spin on it and making it fresh. Because we don't get anything, meaning anybody in the world, we don't get it till 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, I didn't put the toilet seat down to the 12th time. Finding the right people. Most people will likely listen to the story, do something. Some can be persuaded to the cause. I mean, what I would do with every news organization, I would hunt back through the organization until you found somebody who was somebody who would be on your side. Okay? And then I would work them and say, who else can be on our side? And then I would start to work the stuff and make friends and build it out from there. And eliminate those that you're not going to persuade. As I said before, there's just certain people, they got a storyline in, and it hurts to hit your side against the wall like that all day long. And you will feel that because you're going to why can't I convince this person to like the Mets? Well, they're a Yankee fan. Can't get them to change, so stop it. Try to figure out how you build your base. And at the right time. I mentioned earlier, you want to talk to elected officials, you want to talk to them before they get in office. Okay? You want to talk to them as early as possible and make them understand basic facts about something. Okay? You don't want to talk to them once they're captured. They'll be captured by their party, by their leadership, and by their lobbyists. Okay, and they will be captured. It's not their fault. They're going to go from here to here overnight. and then they're going to be too busy, okay? Then they're going to have 3,000 emails in their thing, and they're just going to go. And finally, it depends on the environment. There's certain times that people will want to hear the issue, and there'll be other times that they won't. One other thing I want to say is we have to get creative about this in many, many forms, and just get even used to advocating. You know, I was telling Jennifer, you know, yesterday I was dealing with this a little bit. Pennsylvania, we're defending the Voter Rights Act that's in the state, which is draconian, you know, but it is constitutional. It was passed by a legislature, and the Attorney General is required to do it. And I started to think, like, who doesn't have a voter ID? And of course, the whole storyline has been, you know, that it was designed to hit poor people, African Americans, and it was partisan. But I started to think about it, and I thought, my mother was diabetic and blind. She did not drive a car. She did not have an ID. And I thought, you know, advocates for the blind ought to be saying something that's like, they're hit hard for it. Folks in wheelchairs, no driver's license. The people hurt, people with disabilities are going to be disproportionately hurt and didn't do anything wrong and are going to be forced to go spend 3, 4, 5 hours to get a fake ID to satisfy a Voter Rights Act. And it's like, where's anybody speaking up? Where's anybody saying, wait a second. Why are you putting this extra burden? Okay? So I'm saying we start advocating in every way and getting out there and getting into these issues to make people just aware that there's this giant community with disabilities, and it's the size of the community and the impact that all these little things have on folks that the minute I thought about that, it's like, damn it, my mother would have had to go get an ID, and that's bad. And all of a sudden I'm an advocate for, you know, for the issue. So, long story short, let's get a message. Let's get a consistent message. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to get agreement. And let's figure out how to deliver it and shout it, and hopefully, collectively, at least on some issues and some parts of the message, we'll have a louder voice than we had before. And that's the goal of this group. And thank Jennifer for putting it together and putting so much time into it, and thank all of you for coming here today.
Congressman Sessions is coming, from what I think, at this point. Maybe one of our fellows wants to just touch base with his office and see what the ETA is. I don't know, Hannah, if you could just do that. Questions for Doc? You want to take a couple questions?
Hot. I'll take questions.
Yeah.
Outstanding presentation, and the importance of unification of the message is obviously vital. So please resolve this dilemma, which speaks to the purpose of today.
Yes.
We have 3 very simple messages that actually need to be braided together to deliver the ultimate message. 1, 70% of Americans with disabilities don't have a job. They have a shot. We have a shot at the American dream. 2, there are a variety of practices currently in place for people with disabilities to work in a variety of environments that are working successfully for everyone, both employer and employee. 3, we are now the people who can make the change from the conversation of this is a problem to this is something that the country needs to engage with. How do we bring those 3 together?
First of all, you know, I teach, when I teach messaging, we build triangles and boxes. You just build a perfect triangle. You put the 3 pieces into the triangle, and we should use that as a cornerstone of like things that we're talking about. Under that would be all the factoids that support your triangle. So what you've basically laid out is that as I go into and talk to, this is not fair, but I'll say reporter wall, because that's what it's like talking to. Wake up. Okay? I now have a triangle when they say to me, well, why should I care about this? I have a triangle that says, oh, it's 70%, it's a large number. I know how a large number is. I can break it down by, you know, if I'm in Cleveland and I'm talking to the reporter, I should know that it's X number, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I should be able to explain out off the factoid. Oh, opportunity. Well, let's talk about opportunity and wasted cost. You know, it cost us this amount of money. For the person who wants to hear it that way. So in each of those three things that you just laid out, which is a perfect message triangle, okay? We put the background and the filler in the sense of how to make it relevant. When I talk to the wall, and the wall blocks me on this one or blocks me on that one, I have a pattern to get into the conversation. And I stick to that triangle. I work around that triangle and keep getting back to 70% opportunity. This is an opportunity to make a difference and change. Here's what the outcome is on it. And I have an opportunity to get that across. So when I leave, a person has a sense of, they listen to it, because I got into it some way, figured out how to start the conversation. I went through my rotation of those three specific points, and it gave them the backup information that they needed to sort of flip them, okay? Chances are I can break that wall down. Chances are I can get through that reporter or legislator or whatever and break that wall down, okay? Because I have covered basically everything anybody could care about. I can cover it from the compassion side, I can cover it from the economic side, I can cover any of their concerns. Don't get me wrong, there's some people that are just a-holes that you can't get through. And those we're going to have to eliminate because it's a waste of time. But we can get enough people on a consensus to actually get some kind of result. So you've laid out a perfect, what we call message triangle. That's a huge victory getting that far. If we get that through, then we ought to be able to get some action in places and get some kind of action. But it isn't going to happen overnight. Okay, it isn't going to happen overnight, but it's, you know, there's a Gladwell, a tipping point. There will be a tipping point. We keep pounding it, you know. I mean, this country, look, really move it a lot faster than, I mean, as bonehead, as upset as we get about like what's going on, I mean, you know, states are passing marijuana laws. Yeah. Gay marriage is, you know, we're at 70% on that now. This country is moving quite a bit in a lot of areas, so the time is ripe. Just won't happen at night, overnight. Got to flip a lot over, and I don't know what it is, but someplace, sometime, somewhere, it could be a presidential candidate as a cause. It could be TV shows as a cause. It could be news media as a cause, or whatever. This is going to flip, and it's our job to figure out and put pressure every which way we can, and love the little victories along the way.
So,
yes, yeah.
One more thing I was going to throw out. I touched on this earlier with another guest, but tell me what your thoughts are on the messenger and not just the message. Because I think one thing when you get, like, you know, one reason I call myself a trailblazer instead of a crusader is because it's a perception issue. A crusader, a lot of people go, ooh, that's all she's going to know how to talk about. Whereas a trailblazer, it's like, you know, that opens doors because a trailblazer blazes. And I think one of the things that we as a movement need to learn how to do is how to present the issues a little better. Because God knows I'm as frustrated as everybody else. But I think that we let our frustration get in the way.
Right.
How can we, because I think one of the ways that you engage with somebody is when you're not attacking them. And I think that we have a perception problem because we get seen as being attack mongers, and we're not.
Right.
But if we've been as ignored as we are, there's reason for us to be pissed off. You know.
No, that's right. That's a good. I think that a lot of the messaging has to be a lot more positive and optimistic, because there are practices that are working, and there are companies that are hiring people, and there are programs that are working, and you know, it was a long time ago, but I'll use this place as an example. I used to sit in one of these offices here, and people, it's like anything. People come in and complain. You were like, yeah, great. You know, that's like, yeah.
You're coming in to bitch at me again.
Yeah.
I need to learn how to pitch and not bitch.
Yeah. And I think optimistic about corporations that have success stories is a good thing to go in and say, you know, look, this is really working here, and this is really good for the country, and it's really good for your district, and it's really good for the people, and everybody's happy. Can we do more of it? is a good way to get at it as opposed to, damn it, we don't got it. Okay, and I think in all this stuff, I think what Jennifer's doing with focus groups and polling and all that will help, because then you'll see quantifiable data that says the better way to pitch something or present something is that way. I don't know that, it's just my instinct.
It
It's
just
like,
sort of seems to be common sense.
but
you get
yeah, it's common
flies
sense.
behind.
I shock everybody, because everybody always asks me every day, like, how you doing? And I always say, excellent. And they're kind of like shocked, you know? But somebody told me a long time ago, if I complain, no one's going to listen to it. And so I start off, you know, I'm excellent. Yeah, this is really great and everything. I'm pissed off. I get to where I want to go, but I'm into the game of you know, having the conversation before I get to that. And I know it's difficult. I know it's frustrating, and I know it's very difficult. But I think that the better way is to get everybody optimistic on your side and say, yeah, there's something we can do. I just need you to help me.
Yeah.
I just need you to take what this corporation's doing and move it over to your corporation. Or take what this district's doing and move it over here. You know, it doesn't cost you anything, and it's really good. And, like,
And I can even show you how to do it. if
yeah,
you
it's
want some help.
really easy,
Yeah.
and you're going to be a hero, and
Yeah.
people are going to clap and say, you're great. And, you know, I think that's just about doing this. And we just have to figure out how to do it, and messaging and all this stuff helps because, you know, it helps because to get into how they process the information is different than, you know, like I said, and it's not, we had to deal with reality, you know, we all, you know, it's people think differently now and have so much to confirm what, you know. One of my games, I buy TV ads and everything. One of my things now is to ask anybody what they watch on TV. And we used to all watch the same stuff, and we don't. Everybody watches the weirdest stuff in the world, and you watch it, that's going to confirm that the world's full of Honey Boo Boo, you know, or the Housewives of New Jersey. Yeah, I mean, it really is, and people, there's no consistency anymore, and if you think that's what the world is, you're going to like have a different viewpoint than, you know, than I'm going to have, and I work to deal with that, which is to try to figure out how to communicate to folks that watch. I watch Honey Boo Boo, so it's not.
Yes.
I just want to say, I love the question about how do we weave three messages, and Doc's answer about the message triangle, because we use it a lot too. But some years ago, someone helped me get over feeling a little bit guilty about having separate messages with the concept of message mapping, which you might want to look at sometime. And it's really built on the idea that most people remember three things in sets of three. It helps us remember what to say. It helps them hear it and understand it. So having three distinct messages to support what you're trying to get across is very, very good.
Yes.
I'm just curious, you've mentioned in your 35 years that no organization has approached you as a political strategist to advise your candidates. What would you have told your candidates to do, given, you know, most organizations don't have PACs? I have really gone to a candidates forum that the candidates actually been there.
No, what would have happened is I would have seen a huge constituency and group of folks that I would have said, we ought to have policies, and we ought to be thinking about this, because there's votes that be had on these issues. And I certainly would have, you know, I mean, a politician's job, by definition, is to go where the voters are. And if the voters are at parades, they go there. If they're at TV, they go there. And if it's a huge population of folks with disability, they're going to pay attention. That's their job.
Speaking of, a congressman who does a great job. So let me first say thank you to Doc Sweitzer.